Good day, everyone.
Good day.
So I'm Tim,
And I'm Casey.
and we're here again for another episode of our channel, Transcending Consciousness. For this episode, we will discuss Christianity in the Philippines. So we know that Catholicism per se is celebrating its 500 years of being in the islands today, which is a great achievement. But let's look on how the origins of the church came about here in the Philippines, as well as the current milieu of Catholicism in this age. So we know that in the past, the Philippines is interspersed with many beliefs and religions. And there's actually a lot of Muslims in the pre-Spanish era, and a lot of separate tribes in the Philippines, which have their own beliefs and system of rituals that they do for their specific religion. So in pre-colonial times, there was actually no one dominant religion or belief system, and it's all of this interspersed tribes with their own system.
I remember I read Legazpi's memoirs when he came to the Philippines during those times, 500 years ago. And then, yes, there were many tribes, because we are made up of 7,000 plus islands. So in every major location, there are different. There were different religions. For example, in Davao, it is mostly Muslim predominant area, and in the Visayas, Hindu, and in Luzon, probably a mixture of other religions. So yeah, I remember at that time when we tried to look at the situation of the people. In Legazpi's memoirs, we all know that there were classes in our society: the ruling class, the middle class, and the working class. And the lowest, I forgot the case. I forgot what they called it. During those times, during those times, Legazpi observed that the people were happy. Okay? There was no poverty, everything was in abundance. Even the lowest of the people, they had access to gold. They don't actually get beyond their needs. In short, the people at that time were not greedy, and they respect nature. The fruits were abundant, and they follow religiously the rituals. For example, every 3 in the afternoon, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, some Hindus, they try to swim in the rivers. I remember Legazpi mentioned the Pasig River, or the Marikina River, was really pristine during that time. So yeah, that was the time of that was the situation before the Spaniards came to our country.
So when the Spanish came, so we know that Spanish came, Lapu-Lapu fought back, but eventually was defeated, and Spaniards claim Magellan, but Magellan didn't make it. So it was Legazpi who claimed the Philippine name, the group of islands, Philippines, in honor of King Philip. And then there were now the deluge of this Spanish Catholic priests and friars who converted the majority of the Philippines, especially the Luzon and the Visayas area, to the Catholic faith. So here we can see that, looking at it retrospectively, it's not really good that we forcefully convert people from a certain religion to another, because what they did was to burn books of worship, so the Bibles of their religions, all their works, poetry, and everything. It was destroyed in the Spanish age, burned by the friars. Their places of worship were ransacked and destroyed. That's why there's limited ancient relics or books or tomes that were pre-Spanish era, because the Spaniards came, the friars, the priests, they destroyed all of this material, rich culture of the Filipino people were all destroyed in order for them to be replaced by the Catholic faith, because they deemed that these works were of the devil and therefore should be removed.
What really happened to our country was this is just my opinion, just merely observing. We actually imbibed the behavioral patterns or the beliefs of the Spaniards. So yeah, instead of us really progressing as a nation, for me, everything went southwards or downwards from that moment. So we know that some of the Filipino traits we have today came from the Spanish. For example, what they call this, the siesta time, or we imbibe that trait of just being lax in our work, just preferring rest than doing our best. Or some people are still, when they have an appointment, they arrive late. So we imbibe their culture with their behavioral patterns also. And I don't think that with religion, supposedly the Catholic faith or the Christianity should have united all of us as a nation, but I don't think that was the case. And you see a lot of struggles lately in our society. There are a lot of dropouts already. People they do not believe in the church anymore. So what do you think is the problem there?
So I just like to add that actually the Spaniards united, the sun and the science, because we have this 90%, more than 90% of the population is Catholic, and maybe 9%, a certain percentage are Christians. So the Filipinos are proud to be named as the only Catholic nation in Asia. But to look at the reality, we are also one of the poorest nations in Asia.
One of the most corrupt. They say we are one of the most corrupt.
We are one of the most corrupt. So countries which are not secular, like Singapore, Hong Kong, have superseded us, and even like the Muslim nation of Malaysia has improved dramatically compared to the Christian nation that is the Philippines. Current climate, both politically and socially and economically, we're lagging behind. So I think what's important to discuss here is why, as a Catholic nation, we're actually one of the poorest. And if you look at, countries with, very high rates of religiosity, they're actually one of the poorest. So the poorest country in Europe is Italy. The South American nations are poor and they're highly religious, just like us, because they got it also from Spain and from Portugal. And the South African nations are also poor, and most of them are Protestant Christians. They're very devout Protestant Christians, but they're poor. What are the richest countries? Scandinavian, Norway, Sweden, Finland. They're very secular, does not have a large percentage of people who are atheists, but they are one of the most progressive country with free healthcare for all. The taxes are very high, but they can see it being used for the public good, and there are no poor in the Scandinavian nations. So if you look at it, it seems that the wealth of the nation is inversely proportional to the religiosity. India is another one, very Hindu religious nation, but it's one of the poorest. The Middle East, very Muslim, and a certain percentage of them have also this radical Islam, practices this form of radical Islam. They're the poorest nation and filled with lots of conflict. Why is that? If you look at it objectively, the more religious a nation is, the more poor it is.
I actually asked that before for myself before. Why we are the #1 Catholic country in Southeast Asia, but why are we the poorest? Why are the other countries such as Korea, Japan, Singapore, why are they progressive? When I analyze this, you see, with the Catholic, with Christianity, it did not address the mindset of us seeing ourselves as separate beings. So we have in our country, we have this saying that the Tagalog saying that kanya-kanya, or we view our families as just our immediate family. We don't see the whole country as our family. So when officials are elected in office, they only think of their families, their immediate families, instead of thinking of the whole country as their family. So what happens is that the rich become richer, and the poor they become poorer. So instead of thinking as a whole, for me, Christianity failed in addressing that mindset of separation, which from there, as we discussed previously, it stemmed to a lot of our problems in our society, in our personal life, and in any aspect of our lives.
Yes, and if you can see, one of the Catholic belief is, for a better afterlife. So it paralyzes people. People just say, yes, there's so much suffering now in my life, but I'm hoping that in the afterlife I will enjoy eternity in heaven. So this is a very, very false and misleading concept. That is, my life will be better in heaven, because it defeats the power. It relegates your power to change your life now to the afterlife. So you no longer have that drive to improve yourself, to improve society, to improve the way you are living now, instead of waiting for your life in heaven. So this is very paralyzing, because it stagnates growth and gives this false hope to people.
Also, I would like to add that since we Catholics or Christians believe in a separate God, a God somewhere out there. So as we have said before, once you believe that there's this certain entity separate from you, in charge of your life, he would grant your wishes or not, or your desires or not. So that automatically, because of our belief, because of that belief, we reduce drastically our life energy, our power to the physical level only. When we believe that I'm just this physical body, so we drastically reduce our energies, our creative powers at the level of the actions only. So we do manual work. And actually, in the story of the Garden of Eden, when God banished Adam and Eve, and when they will like crawl, like the serpent crawling on the ground. What it means that we have forgotten our spiritual power. So we need all, we are forced to do manual labor to acquire the things that we need physically. So yes, with this idea that we are powerless, this separate God will hopefully help us alleviate our sufferings without changing ourselves. That is the one major flaw in the Catholicism that I think we need to change. And because of this idea of a separate God, most people they see it as unfair. They just don't voice it out, but for them, their deeper levels of their being, it seems unfair to them. So a lot of people are now moving away from the church.
Yes. So actually, yes, that idea that your future depends on anything outside yourself, it depends on an external God, is one of the reasons why we're not progressing, because we do not try to better ourselves to improve the current conditions in our life and society. And sometimes, in Catholicism, there is this concept of divine right of kings, that certain people are better than others because they have the right to rule, to be the elite. If you look at it, what is the golden age of the church? It is during the dark ages of Europe. If the golden age of the Catholic Church was the dark ages of Europe, you can see why people, especially in this European nation, have less and less attendance in their churches, have less and less people who are religious, because they have now accepted that they are in charge of their life, not some external God. And with this, they change themselves, change how they run society, and actually they improve the quality of life in their nation, which I feel is also being exemplified here in the Philippines in the early stages of the current program. So I do have high hopes for the Philippines to achieve a level of affluence similar to our European nations, similar to our neighbors here in Southeast Asia, and how Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore have been able to improve their quality of life, to be named as one of the developed countries in Southeast Asia.
In addition to what Tim said, don't you see, guys, when the Catholic Church rose to power, it coincided with the Dark Ages. So what happened during the Dark Ages? There were no new information coming in, because the Catholic Church at that time, they suppressed any new ideas about life, about nature, about God. So they kill all of those people in the name of God.
Yes.
You see, that's a very false idea. Right?
They have the Inquisition and the
witch hunts.
The witch hunts.
They killed the scientists during those times. So the Dark Ages coincided with when people just lived really just laboring, toiling in the ground to just have food. No technology was not yet available at that time, because scientific breakthroughs were not allowed during those times. So you see, for me, that's what happened in the Philippines is a similar, milder form of Dark Ages. Because instead of us progressing as a nation, it went downwards, really downwards, causing a lot of poverty and suffering.
Yes, and if you can look at this also, when is the time when Europe became progressive? It was during the Renaissance, when the influence of the church became decreased. There were new ideas, and therefore it ushered this age of progress in Europe to be one of the most affluent continents in the world. But look at this carefully. Look at in America. America, the United States of America claimed to be a Christian nation. The fundamentalist Christians supported Donald Trump because they believe he is the hope for America. But you see how the mindset of the American nations, of Donald Trump, of this feeling that they are superior. There's a lot of racism during that time. So this is very contrary to what Jesus taught, about feeding the sick, about clothing the naked, about helping all people regardless of race or religion. Jesus helping the Samaritans, helping the prostitutes. So it goes against the teachings of Jesus, what is being currently practiced by especially the fundamentalists of all religions.
So, in addition to what Tim said, in America, yes, why is racism very prevalent? Because of the idea of superiority. Okay? Actually, the Catholic Church or Christianity, they proclaim that they are the one true religion of God. So that is a form of superiority, and when others do not belong to their group, they look down upon them. So indirectly, the people are being taught that, instead of having forgiveness, that is what they see. We are the one true church. All of them will go to hell when they die, and all of us here in this group will have salvation. So that idea is very dangerous, and it actually killed millions of people throughout history and even today. It's very rampant in the US that the hatred towards Asians because of that idea.
Yeah, so many of those Christians proclaim that they are followers of Jesus, but they are not. And they transferred that superiority in religion to superiority in race.
So it's about time for us to, hopefully that that our church leaders can see that the need for transformation, to revisit the Bible and see what exactly was the true teaching of Jesus Christ.
So we now know that there's a decline in attendance in the church. So it was amplified with the coronavirus pandemic, but there's already that decreasing attendance in church, especially for the young people. And why is that? Because more and more people realize the falsehood in many doctrines of the church. So in order for the church to stay well connected with the people, there should be a renewal to how it is run and to their dogmas and what they hold dear. So especially for me, the problem of pedophilia is prevalent not only in the Catholic Church here in the Philippines, but worldwide. And for me, a problem for the church is they try to hide the priests. That's so unfair, because if a lay person would commit that crime of pedophilia, of rape, of sexual harassment, they will be prosecuted in court. But a priest is not. The priest simply was not even relieved of his duties as priest. They simply transferred that person to another diocese. Can you see that oddity? Like, they call for forgiveness of the priest who sinned, but they're treating him as something special, something above the common people, because if a common person would do that crime, they would get jailed. But the priest is not jailed. So for me, if the church wants renewal, they should revisit their decision on this priest. They should strip them of their priestly duties and surrender them to the authorities. If they should appear in court, and if they are proven guilty, they should be punished just like everyone else, and not because they feel that they are treating the priest as someone superior than the common people.
In addition to what Tim said, so remember, guys, we said a while ago that the root cause of our problems today is the idea of us being separated from each other. So you see, when you see yourself as separate, you start now to compare. I'm bigger, I'm thinner, or something like that. And then now comes I'm better. That's the more dangerous idea. So yeah, why do you think the priest or some our religious leaders they commit this? Because they see themselves as separate from others. Okay, actually, it's not really their fault. They were taught that way. That they should master the doctrines academically, intellectually. But guys, remember, this is one of the fallacy in religion. So we cannot really know God through the intellect or academically. But we can. The best way to understand God is to experience God, because it's really different. Knowing something academically is completely different from experiencing it. For example, I can write a book about a mango, but you, without trying it, experiencing it's really completely different. So maybe it's about time, maybe in future discussions we'll discuss what happened exactly to religions all over the world. So we will discuss why it became like that.
For me, yes. Number one is, pedophilia. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people lose their interest in the church, because they can't even handle this affair correctly. And, they hide the priest. Is that how? It's like a fraternity. So now the Catholic Church priesthood and the Bishop Association is like a fraternity where they protect each other even if someone committed a crime. To the extent of hiding them, and they actually bribe or pay off some of the victims in some countries. That is so unfair, because if it's a common person, that won't do, because they don't have that influence.
When it comes to pedophilia, there's a saying that when we should abstain from sex for us to attain higher higher state of consciousness or higher state of being. So what happens? That idea is not suitable for all the priests, okay? All of us, because at some level we are different. All of us are we have different levels of spiritual evolution, okay? So yes, at the lower levels, when you're still attracted to women, it's very natural for a priest to fall in love with another, to get married, to have a family, to experience the union between a man and a woman. And then what happens, because the danger of that is when someone becomes addicted to, for example, to sex. Okay, so that's the dangerous part. But when you try to repress your natural urges, that will lead to that. It will lead to pedophilia, to perversion of this natural urge. So before, I remember my father told me that before the priests were allowed to get married. It was only a pope who told them to live a celibate life. But it's not that idea is not applicable for all. As you progress higher in the spiritual evolution, it will naturally, for you, it will naturally happen that you will have no more desire for sex. Once you experience it enough, the time will come that that's enough for me. So when you reach that state that it's already enough for you to experience that, that's the time to to live a celibate life, and then to focus more on tuning yourself with God, your oneness with God. So yeah, that idea does not apply to all priesthood. So yeah, those in the lower spiritual level, they suppress their feelings, their urges, and then that suppression will lead to perversion of that urges, like pedophilia, rape, or
remember what you suppress persists. So that's, and it's also bad, because the church also demonized the concept of sex when it should not be demonized. And another form of my contention of church renewal is the appointment of priestesses or female priests. There are now some religions, some sects of Protestants who have male and female priests. And this is important because if you look at society today, in our Philippine setting, you can see that there is no bias whether you're a man or a woman. You can be a female president, you can be a female CEO, female doctor, you can be a female chair of a hospital. So in all areas of life here, lawyer, doctors, engineer, nurses, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. As long as you are able to fulfill the duties, you can rise up in rank. But in the church, there's a limit for the progression of the nuns, of the women. They can never reach priesthood, they can never be named bishops, well, especially not pope.
So that's one area the church need to address, the equality of men and women, because women, they also have their own wisdom and their own understanding of the situation. So learning from a woman, her point of view will help us really to understand the problem holistically.
We can see this repeated again and again because if you look at the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was supposed to lead the church in the early days and not Peter. But because the apostles cannot fathom that a female could lead them, that's why they do not allow them. Look at it. The Council of Nicaea was created by men. They remove all traces of women empowerment, like the Pistis Sophia, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. This was removed in canon. So now in the modern age, aside from equality of races, equality of gender is important. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female, as long as you have the same potential, the same opportunity to grow, the same opportunity to climb up the ladder. So this is not present in the Catholic Church. It's filled with masculine energy without acknowledging the divine feminine.
The patriarchal society from years past still dominant in our society when it comes to religion. So yeah, it's about time for that to change.
So I have high hopes because of this declining attendance because, well, for many Catholics, especially for the devout, they feel that this is a step back, of the young people not attending church and attending mass. They feel that it will be the spell of doom for the country, but it is not. This is actually will usher an age of renaissance, an age where the quality of life will improve because we are no longer constrained with religion. A lot of religion is the cause why there is stagnation of growth in many countries, including our own.
So a lot of people are now starting to wake up. They're starting to find answers within themselves, following their intuition. So this will lead to more people, discovering the spiritual path, and hopefully, this will lead to a more unified country in the future.
Yes. So we're not saying that you should convert to this or that religion because it doesn't really matter in the eyes of God. It doesn't matter. whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim. What matters is what is in your heart. What are your actions? What are your thoughts? So this is what matters. These labels of being a Christian, being a Muslim, they are external labels. They do not define who we are, and therefore should not define anything, our way of life, how we treat others, and how we treat ourselves.
When you look at the map, when you look the Philippines from outer space or any country, there are no divisions actually. It's just our imaginary division. We place this is Luzon or this is Metro Manila. We just created illusionary boundaries to separate us from each other. So, but in reality, there are none. There's nothing dividing us, separating us from each other. So yes, hopefully we can see that we are all united together and with others and with God and with life.
And if we can see the unity of all life, we are all one. Then we will not seek to let down any part of ourselves. That's why Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Because your neighbor is yourself. And it's a very universal truth that what you reap, you will sow. So do unto others what you would want others to do unto you. Or do to others what you would like others to do to you. These universal principles, we are hoping to impart them to society, to here in the Philippines and beyond, so that people can live by these universal laws, which are independent of any religious ideal, any religious affiliation.
So nicely said, Tim.
Yeah, so in the modern age, we hope to have a more spiritual country where people look within themselves to find answers and look within, help each other, and do not want to, place down any part of life. So that is my high hopes in the Philippines, and let's work together to have a better Philippines.
Also, remember guys, but when you raise others, you raise yourself. When you raise the whole, you raise yourself. So that's my last words.
Thank you.
Thank you.